Hello and welcome to the 6th edition of Power Dynamics for Life. I'm Dr. Aisha Haynes-Belizaire and this video is for educational purposes. Today's topic is political gaslighting, American democracy, and January 6th. Now I want to just start off by saying I am a political scientist. I have a doctorate degree in political science, a master's, and a bachelor's. So this really is within my wheelhouse. And I don't have a political agenda, but I really want people to understand what we're dealing with here right now in America. So I want to start off just by saying that, we are blessed to live in a democracy, and I know I say that all the time, but democracy is not the norm across the world. And throughout history, governments were usually led by kings and queens, dynasties, family lineages, also dictators, military leaders, autocrats. That has been the norm throughout history and across the world. So we've been a democracy for over 240 years. And one of the hallmarks of democracy is elections and also the peaceful transfer of power. And we had that until 2020. In 2020, our president, Donald Trump, decided that there will not be a peaceful transfer of power. So let's just jump into how that ended up coming about. Well, first of all, I want to talk about political gaslighting. And political gaslighting is the purposeful manipulation of a person's reality and experience. And this is done by a political leader or system in order to gain or maintain power in regards to political power, economic or social power, so that they can maintain control. And what ended up happening here in the United States, this is a type of personality that our former president had that wanted to be in total absolute control. It's not the type of government that we are accustomed to here. But a way that you're able to get the type of backing and support to do that is to stoke divisions in a society. And it doesn't take long to come to America and see what kind of divisions we have in America. We have racial divisions. We have cultural divisions. We have divisions by region, north, south, east, west. We have divisions by education, income, male, female, all kinds of divisions, whether you live in rural area or whether you live in the city, religion, all kinds of divisions. So if you get a type of personality that wants to be a dictator, what do? You go and you find a group of people who will be diehard supporters for you. And I'm not faulting these people, because one of the things that Donald Trump was able to do was to find large swaths of voters who usually didn't regularly vote and would go out to a lot of very rural areas, something that a lot of presidents never did. They'll go to major cities, and even in the country, it would be, big areas, but that's how presidents campaign, because they got to cross the whole country, and it's a big country. But Donald Trump was able to find people where they would come from everywhere, and he would go to small areas and people would come from everywhere to see him, and he was able to stoke the flames of division and would say to the people, hey, you lost your job, it's the immigrants' fault, or it's those people over there in the city, they're sucking away all your tax dollars, or you've got people who are trying to replace you and you're the real Americans. And in a lot of these areas, they used to be booming areas, some of them, and they ended up shutting down because manufacturing moved overseas. And he came and said, hey, don't sell your house, I'm bringing the jobs back. He told the farmers, I'm going to get a higher price for your grain, your crops, your soybeans, And so he made all of these promises to these people and said, you know, hey, I'm the one who cares about you. All those other people don't care about you. A lot of these areas, they had rural hospitals closed down, and he said he's going to, you know, bring their hospitals back. And so, you know, they were very happy to have somebody who really cared about them. But one of the things is that he made a lot of the racial tensions worse, and blaming the other. Those are the people who are your problem. And so this is what went on for the majority of his presidency and really stoked that back up really bad in 2020. Now, what was going on in 2020? We were in the midst of COVID. And one of the things that election officials decided to do was to have extended voting hours, have more mail-in ballots, and the former president wasn't having any of that. He hated mail-in ballots so much to the point he got his postmaster general to start snatching up mailboxes and slowing down the mail. And, you know, one of the reasons election officials, we didn't have a vaccine. We were losing like 400,000 people a day. They didn't want a bunch of people trying to vote being squeezed into a little precinct. And so these measures to make voting easier were made accessible. So as we get closer to the election, he begins to say, well, if I lose the election, it's rigged, you know, and don't trust the mail-in ballots, and they're going to try to steal it. And so all of this is just stoking the flames, and people already have a lot of anxiety because, you know, we got COVID isolation, kids haven't been in school, you know, businesses are shutting down. It is not a time to be stoking anxieties, but that's what he did. And the constant political gaslighting is saying it's those people who are your problem. And so we get to election night, and on election night, one of the things that happened I want to talk about is the red mirage, conspiracy theories, and the big lie. So a red mirage in political science is when on election day, for the most part, Republicans, they vote on election day. And so when results come in, usually most states and counties, they will count their same day vote, the election day vote first, and then they'll count the absentee ballots in the early voting. Well, Republicans tend to vote on election day in higher numbers than Democrats. Democrats tend to vote early in higher numbers. And so so that's what produces what they call the red mirage. And so they told President Trump, it's going to be a red mirage. So don't, you know, get too excited early on because, you know, the Democrats really took advantage of mail-in voting and early voting. And so when those ballots start to come in, you're going to see your lead start to, you know, come down because of those ballots. Well, you know, they weren't able to, the night of the election, call it, but in the wee hours of the morning, Donald Trump comes out and says that they're trying to steal the election, and as far as he's concerned, they won the election and it's fraud. And all of his advisors, and they've been showing this during the January 6th committee meetings, were telling him, no, the election was not stolen. They were telling him that, you know, it was looking, once they called Arizona for Joe Biden, which was one of the states that, you know, was in the swing state toss-up categories, that most likely it wasn't going to go in a positive direction for him, but they still hadn't finished counting. And as days went by, he kept saying it's stolen. They were bringing in ballots in suitcases, and election workers were stuffing the boxes, and the voting machines were flipping votes, and dead people were voting, and people in urban areas were coming and voting 2 and 3 times, and all of these election lies, and kept pushing it and pushing and pushing it. And that became the big lie. And there were all kinds of conspiracy theories. And one of the things about conspiracy theories is that there is always a little thread of truth, but then there's a whole bunch of extra sauce put on it, and you just can't go with that. And so what ended up happening is that they started taking these cases to court, and Rudy Giuliani was President Trump's attorney. But the thing about it is, when Giuliani went to court across the country to fight all of these quote-unquote election fraud things, you know what? There were 62 cases, and they lost 61. The one that they actually did win, I believe, was a procedural He's the one that they actually did win. But out of 62, they lost 61. And so there was no election fraud, and no way where that was going to overturn the election, anything that was significant to overturn the election. But he kept on. And people said, why is he still, he just would not accept it. And I don't know if it was within his personality that he couldn't accept it, but there was a reason that the January 6th committee brought out the other day. So from November until the January 20th, when the president is inaugurated, is about a good two and a half months. The president put in place an election fraud campaign fundraiser, and out of that, he raised $250 million. That is $250 million. And to this day, the January 6th committee said they cannot find all of that money. And that money came from a lot of small donors, a lot of people who really were believing in him, a lot of people who come from, really modest means. And so the money was just racking in, and as long as he said it was fraud, he could keep collecting the money. Now, I want to talk about what a coup d'etat is. And we don't hear this term a lot associated with America, and we hear it in other countries. But basically, it is the sudden enforceable overthrow of a government, usually marked by violence in an illegal manner. And so January 6th, a lot of people say it's an attempted coup. And some people say, oh no, it's just people protesting. No, it was a lot more than that. It was organized. There were people that were there for a rally, and then there were people that were there that were domestic violent extremists, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, 3%ers. All of these people came to wreak havoc, to overthrow the government. They have been charged with seditious conspiracy. Okay, these were the people that erected the gallows outside of the Capitol and had the noose hanging and got the people to start chanting, hang Mike Pence. They were looking for Mike Pence, the vice president, and Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, because that is the line of succession. After the president is the vice president and then the Speaker of the House. And they were going to topple the government. That was what they had come to do. And it took 4 hours. The Capitol Police, and I feel so bad for them, they fought this mob for 4 hours, hand-to-hand combat. Some of them died. Some of them committed suicide. A lot of them were injured, serious injuries, heart attacks, strokes, traumatic brain injuries. This is what happened to them while the president sat back in the White House and watched. And leadership was calling, trying to say, where is the National Guard? Call in somebody. We need help. And it was finally Mike Pence, once they were able to whisk him away to safety, that actually did call the National Guard. Donald Trump had gone AWOL. He was basically sitting there watching what was happening and was not going to call off the mob that he sent to the Capitol, because they were doing exactly what he wanted. And so you may say, why do we have to talk about that? That was 2020. We're moving on. We got all these things going on, inflation. We got all these issues, all of these problems. But look, it's not over, okay? Most coups that was an attempted coup. And most coups are not successful the first time. That's a run through. That means that they are going to try again. And they are putting things in place to do that. You have state and local governments changing laws for voting, changing laws for how votes are tallied, putting people in certain offices that will bend to the will if Trump decides to run again, whether he wins or not. There are members of Congress. January 6th committee has found out there are members of Congress. They named one, Andy Biggs, who actually asked for a pardon for what happened on January 6th before Trump left office. And there are other members that they're going to be talking about. So I really want you all to watch these hearings. It's as important as an American. We only have a democracy as long as we keep it a democracy, and we are are active in our government. I thank you so much for watching. My name is Dr. Aisha Haynes-Belizaire, and I want you to like, share, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think, and please share this video. Thank you so much, and I will be seeing you next week with updates on January 6th and other pressing issues. Thank you once again, and have a blessed day. Bye-bye.